Mostly the top tier is funded by large companies that are using it. Large companies that are using it. Partly funded, effectively by volunteers working for SpaceX. There's a bottom tier of dependencies that are run on a shoestring. Like critical, amazing people working overnight as volunteers, and there's very few organizations, one of them which is a partner to current AI, robust, open source, robust safety, that are funding those critical dependencies. So I think that for states across the world, in the global south, in the north, in the global south, in the north, sovereignty, and I'd like to talk about this a bit before, but I don't want to. We need to talk about compute, but also we need to be realistic about what the compute is going to be used for. So I think the data piece is a really important piece. I think I'll probably run out of time to talk about the data bottleneck. Go for it. Well, go for it. So the number of people in the room. I've worked on this issue for a long time on this issue. I won't name check everyone. I think it's fantastic that there's been so much innovation in compute, and we've seen such change over the past 10 years. In contrast, I think it's a complete tragedy that we haven't seen much innovation when it comes to data, and specifically the ability for people to be able to share personal data in ways that are both respect privacy and contribute to outcomes. And that's effectively it. I think we need a huge amount of resources and thought, both when it comes to the technical side of the issue, other than the side, I think that enterprise users of AI have access to these kind of safeguards in a way that private users don't. Talk about if we have time. And then on the governance side. So for example, Velas, you and I have talked for a long time about different others forms of data stewardship, whether data trust or others. I haven't seen one that scales to the level that we would want to see it scale to. I think we need a lot more resources, a lot more thinking. There's been work done. Could harness even 20% of the sort of 20% of the sort of world that's going into compute right now. I think we would be in a very different place.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin. Actually, Velas, I'll go next to you. I think this reminds a recent article. Indian Premier League as a model for how India builds world-class institutions. We read it this conversation. Is there a similar IPL playbook for public? There's the window for building these closing institutions as commercial consolidation accelerates.
Well, I can't think of a more controversial topic to spend our time here in this conversation. It's been a good week all around. But I think many of the people in this room probably know. Before I start, I just want to say, Dr. Garg, I want to acknowledge in particular your leadership. I spend a lot of time with senior decision makers across government. Conversations that we really given me great hope. Really given me great hope for the combination of technical, but also understanding what this means. So I want to acknowledge your leadership. Thank you. Look, this question around the IPL, I think is great. Let's not torture the analogy and take something really fun and then try to tie it to AI. But here's what I'll say about it. I think in many ways, what we need is a new institutional framework that goes from the elites who are participating in their own places to something that feels deeply participatory. And I think around compute infrastructure, we are stuck in a model where we re-engaging and renovating old concepts and try to describe it. I will tell you, sovereignty has been the buzzy word to talk about, right? Everybody wants to talk about sovereignty as a Westphalian concept that goes back a few centuries. Tries to take the idea that ownership of pieces of silicon somehow magically results in outcomes and impact. Now there are logical links. And of course there are codependencies. But to simply say that we will cite in a particular geography, and so figure out a way to disconnect ourselves from the interdependence of the doesn't really bring us to a good outcome. I'll tell you the second part of this. AI diffusion. AI diffusion. Heard this already. Every tech CEO has been the buzzword of the moment. I spent some time yesterday with the Prime Minister and a number of tech CEOs who wanted to talk about their investments. Those investments in many ways followed the playbook of the PR press release. We're going to build a new data center. We're going to invest in a new compute capacity. But when you dig deep and you ask the next question, who will this really benefit? What value does this create? What value does this create for public impact? How does putting a large number of servers in a particular place finding a benefit in economic opportunity, a sense of dignity, the conversation sometimes called. So AI diffusion to me, in its core concept, the idea that you hyper technological capacity, compute data, and somehow the rest of the society sounds a little too much like as an American I know too intimately has trickled down. The idea that if we made the rich as somehow the benefits would filter down to everybody else. AI diffusion is a passive concept. It starts from the premise that we build technological capacity for few, and somehow it works out for few, and somehow it works out. But there's an alternate model, and it ties directly to this report and the work that we've been talking about, and the work that we've been talking about. For AI to benefit everyone requires a direct and active. It requires us to step in and say, what are the institutions that actually physically and metaphorically and transform the idea of compute infrastructure to be something that everybody can use. It requires us to build the institutional layers and the capacity that lets a community that's trying to solve a local problem know that the thing compute isn't the thing that rather the conceptualization, the aggregation of the full stack of resource sets that include data governance mechanisms, that include the political agency of communities, and let us then turn that into that final infrastructural development that actually leads to the outcome we're solving. In many ways, I think this is the institutions that are represented here on the stage for philanthropies to transform the capital landscape in a way that says and leaders like my dear friend Chico here, so many here in India that are building public access AI stacks, don't have to worry about the resource constraints of the private capital. That they know that they can access governmental and substantive structure that let them build the tools that they want to, and know that they have equitable access to the markets as a matter both of policy and that they can go out and get to consumers, that they can provide a service that let people use it at scale. And the last part of this, and I have to say this is as we've discussed in the private, but it also doesn't happen exclusively by going to frontline nonprofits and saying, now you're supposed to be the builders. It requires us to innovate a new institutional set of intermediaries. I think of groups like Culpa Impact, which I think is an incredible example of a new institutional set of intermediaries. I think of groups like Culpa Impact, support for government, which I think is an incredible example layer that connects these different elements and lets us policy impact. Support for government that actually, if we really think the layer that pragmatic these different elements and lets us build. I think one of the questions we might ask is, what are the work that's ahead? If we really think about pragmatic outcomes, this conversation connects the dots. I think one of the questions we might ask is,
look like that doesn't just how do we formalize these reciprocal agreements? And what does a true look like that doesn't just how do we formalize these reciprocal agreements? And what does a true India-Africa partnership look like that doesn't just reciprocate global north-south models, similar to what Villas was just talking about?
So I was hoping
thank you very much for having me.
Some of the work that I was going to talk about.
Lucky for me, I have some stuff to talk about.
I was hoping
thank you,
Vilas.
to preempt some of the work that I was going to talk about.
So when you talk about compute,
to talk about.
Thank you, Vilas.
In fact, we launched an AI research lab in Nairobi, and we have
when you
some
talk about
GPUs
compute,
there.
it's
And one of the key things was like a demo. In fact, we launched an AI research lab in Nairobi, and we have some GPUs there. And one of the key things was
PS
like a demo
oh my God, this is what a GPU, because he's never seen a GPU. And then I made sure, like, every time I'm PS was asking, oh my God, this is what a GPU, because he's never seen a GPU. And ask not on the internet. I made sure, like, every time I'm speaking, I'm asking, how many of you actually have seen a GPU?
Maybe 5 people.
Not on the internet, touched
And
one.
this is everywhere, every single room that we're talking about compute. We ask the same question, have you ever seen a GPU?
And this is everywhere,
now,
every
5
single
to 10
room that we're
people.
talking
So
about
it's this
compute
thing.
We ask the
that
same
people
question,
talk about.
have you ever
We
seen
need
a
GPUs,
GPU?
we need compute, we need all
And
of
right
these
now,
things.
5 to 10 people.
And for
So
us,
it's
it is
this
very important
thing
as an African
that
continent.
people
We
talk
had
about.
like
We need
a research
GPUs, we
colloquium
need
for the
compute, we
Global
need all
South
of
a
these
few days
things.
ago. And for us, it is very important as an African continent. We had like a research colloquium for the Global South. How many of you need a few days compute? Everybody raises same question. How many of you? But what does about 10 people had never touched a GPU? One of the panels. How many of you? The starting point was compute. It comes to compute. We all need Jesus. What does that actually? And I thought, in fact, one of the panels. How do we quantify this? So when it comes to compute, and I think we have all need Jesus about this. And I thought, I think on the same time about how do we quantify this? So we, and I think we have already spoken to Carl because we realized every time we speak about, I think on the same time about a framework. So ideas, we just released a compute demand thoughts index. They have because we realized every time we speak about compute, they don't have the numbers to say ideas. We need GPUs. They have thoughts. How many? They have. We need proposals. Megawatts, and they don't have the megawatt to say that. What does that a gigawatt GPUs compute actually mean? We need megawatts. So we went ahead and said for Africa, we need to. Every time we're having conversations with this compute actually this is actually what you need. So but we went ahead and said for Africa, we need to. Every time we have conversations with this government, demand index. And the second one is, but is your country ready for this? So we compute. Our first index was we are calling demand index, and the second one is investment. Is your country ready for this? So I'll give you some numbers, which is we are calling Africa needs 2.5 investment readiness index. Hours. So I'll give you some numbers. GPU hours. Africa needs 2.5 million, 7.5 hours million for the next 3 years to be able to start competing well. This is for training. 7.5 million for the next 3 years to be able to start. That is something that I can work with. This is for training. So when I come to India and say I need 2.5 million GPU hours a year, that is something that I can work with. And we have this conversation. So when I come to India and say I need to, we have 1.5 hours a year, I can donate. How many of them can you give me? We have this conversation with the UNDP and Italy, and they said, we have 1.5 Cassava is saying we are putting 2,000 GPUs. We have how many hours of GPUs more to those GPUs? No, hours. Cassava is saying we are putting 2,000 GPUs. How many hours of GPUs with those GPUs? Hours. Not so we need to start being very practical. How many hours of GPUs being arbitrary on what 2,000 GPUs actually provide for the continent. Of these 7 million, so we need to be 7 million very practical. We need in the next 3 years. Africa only has 5% of that. Of these 7 million demands, 7 million we only have 125 years. Africa only has 5 hours a year, which is like so we are doing demands of that. That's we only have 125,000 of these GPU hours a year. Which is like when I go to Villas, I'm saying I need these GPU hours. It's very practical. Is I'll say I can be able to. So you're solving. You're not. When I go to Villas, I'm saying it's not just going with an arbitrary number hours. It's very practical. Is I'll say and for us that is important. But for me it is the. So it's not just going with an arbitrary number, and that's the conversation that we asked. How do we and for us that is important. South collaboration. How does we have this India collaboration? How does that actually look like? How do we have this South collaboration? How does we have this India collaboration? As Martin said, how does it actually look sovereignty? Everyone wants to talk about diversity. And investment readiness is power. Are they able to? Do they have capable? The talent and I love. I think both Martin and the ministers do they have power? What we think about. Do they have think about the talent and I love. I think both Martin and the ministers spoke about what we govern about. When you think about compute, you don't think about just thinking about investment readiness when it comes to compute. You have to look about all these things. Because I can give you GPUs as he said, and I've worked in digital transformation for the last 20 years, and I work for the because I can give you GPUs as he said, and I've worked in digital transformation for the last 20 years, and they have never been powered as a digital transformation at all. And that's buy computers and go 3 years later, and they have never been powered. These GPUs at all. If they don't have talent, and that's the case that is going to be with GPUs, because you're going to data countries. They have models. They have if they don't have talent to build on top of it. They don't have the power that money. They don't have, and that's where the investment readiness comes. They have models. They have use cases to build on top of it. You're wasting that money. And that's where there's no point investment readiness comes in. So we're talking to countries, and we've had this conversation to African countries is get your talent ready, get your data all your dollars in putting strong use cases that people can back. Get your talent ready. When with all get of your data sets then ready, can we then define what are demand use cases that people can back? You don't need a gigawatt Kenya. All of that, you do not need a gigawatt of define what a demand to be able to need. That you don't need a gigawatt Kenya. You do not need a government especially of bridging gap to be able to gap. Maybe you need a 200 and then the governance facility, and that's where we want.
So coming back to the question, how do we interact with it? But it's not just about facilitating the GPUs. What is the GPU?
Sean, over to you. The Philanthropy Asia Alliance brings together, you have 80 members and partners. Sean, over to you. The Philanthropy Asia Alliance challenges, you have 80 members and partners. Is there an opportunity for Asia's challenges to coordinate shared compute and infrastructure? Is there an opportunity for Asia's philanthropic media to coordinate Indonesia and other nations structure rather than competing places like India, Indonesia and other nations rather than competing?
The advantage of coming last is that I could say, I agree with all of them. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to add to the much maligned say, I agree with all of them. I'm going to add to the much maligned Martin repeating. Maybe we could end the panel that way. Compute is actually join Martin in overrated, agreeing that ownership compute is actually a bit overrated. So when you think about the stack,
Sean, ownership, the Philanthropy Asia Alliance brings together.
So when you think about the stack partners, when you think about energy
challenges, compute to philanthropy, is there an opportunity for Asia's philanthropic network to coordinate shared compute and infrastructure, pulling resources from places like India, Indonesia, and other nations rather than competing, and what would unlock that?
Really, the stumbling block is probably the advantage of coming last is that I could say, really, there's thankfully for many countries. I'm going to add to the much maligned cost of compute. Thankfully for many countries, end the panel right away. I'm going to join Martin in actually down, agreeing that then when you think about the next layer of hardware, that's obviously then when you think about the next layer of hardware, so when you think about the stack, another, and when you think about the compute level, then I understand why we fuss over compute. When you think about the compute, the Americans own I understand why we fuss over compute, because the Americans own 175% is really what will drive, and the rest of us are only like 4%, Europeans maybe. I think even India as well, and the rest of us are only like. But I think the issue is actually deeper than just ownership. I mean, if you think about, but I think the issue is actually deeper. Thankfully for many countries, I mean, if you think about, so what it means to get the word sharing is more of high compute. So the question you've posed me about sharing, then when you think about the next layer, for example, between Indonesia and India, from where I live in Southeast Asia, we know the situation in Indonesia is American players. From where I live, and when you think about the compute level, we know the situation. I understand why we fuss over, and that's why there's a build out because the Americans own what's data residence, the physical limitations. That's why there's a build out of the latency. Think also of the physical limitations and the rest of us are latency. For example, 10,000 kilometers in India. When you think about the latency of what 50, but I think the issue is actually deeper than just the ownership. When you think about the latency of sharing, what it gets is not what it needs to get the work done. Attractive as the idea is, so the question you've posed me just physical limitations. Attractive as the idea is, for example, I think they're just physical limitations. I live in Southeast Asia, so I just want to look at the positive side of what's happening from where you think about the cost. So I just want to look at the positive side when you think about the emergence of new cloud is coming down. There's data residence. When you think about it, that's why I think these developments are actually going to be. Think also of the physical limitations. I think these developments are actually going to be for social impact compute between India. So the way you can think about it is how do we then make it a little bit more accessible? When you think about so the way you can think about it is how do we then make it a little bit maybe the way to think about it is really how do you think about sharing impact demand? So maybe the way to think about it is really how do you attractive as the ideal cloud provider so that you can just go physical limitations. How do you then think about philanthropy coming into subsidize? How do you then think about optimize? So the way you can think about it is how do we then make it a little bit more accessible? Is that too long? Startups, that's impact organizations. Maybe the way to think about it is really how do you think about aggregating demand so that you can actually negotiate against the with
I'm scribbling because I'm thinking about your points. I'm scribbling because I'm thinking about your points.
How do you then think about philanthropy coming in to subsidize?
So my scribbles are, Phyllis, to your point about scribbles
I can't agree more with the observation that you really need to go beyond just infrastructure. You need to think about the ecosystem.
That's about the ability to make law within your territory. It's a very global north concept.
It's actually
it's a very global north concept.
And that could be really what's stopping us from really optimizing, maximizing
scribbling was, and I'm just physicality of the territory. It's like the physicality of the territory. As you were saying, physicality as you were saying on the GPU. We're going to be okay because we're going to be solved. We're going to be okay because we're going to be solved. I am scribbling data center. I'm scribbling because I'm thinking about your points. I'm thinking about other concepts. I'm thinking about the term sovereignty. Other concepts as when I was spending a lot of work working on my scribbles are stewardship, you're thinking about indigenous stewardship, thinking about which is a different type of concept. That's about the ability type of relational concept. It's a more relational concept. It's a very global concept. It's about a pre-existing, it's about inherent pre-existing relational authority. And over that, which I was scribbling was people over that. So when we were studying, for example, we're very focused on studying Catalytic, as you were saying, I've been doing some writing and thinking with colleagues and friends around of the world, not of a sort of one where it's a question of here is thinking about open, very open, quite resilient approach to sovereignty, which is about, and that's not one at all, and that's finished with that. And one which is more about all the agency, and anything goes, and anyone can extract. So that's what the panel has got me thinking.
As you can tell, when we get on a panel with people you love and respect, the conversation just flows. So I want to build off this point and a little bit of what you said, Chico. I want to take a different tack to this question of agency, which is, if I had asked any development leader in the world 10 years ago, if you could have your dream of an extra gigawatt of energy capacity in your country, when we get on a panel with people you love and respect, I can't imagine the conversation would have said. So I want to build off this point to run a little bit of what you said, Chico, on things that may or may not. I want to take a different tack to this question of agency, which is, Andrew, your organization, if I had asked any development leader in the world 10 years ago, power production, if you could have your dream of an extra gigawatt of energy capacity in your country, for many of us, as you can tell, we get on a panel with people you love and respect, run conversations flow. So I want to build off on things that may or may not have short-term economic. It is a fundamental. I want to take a different tack to this question of agency, priorities in the world, building capacity. If I had asked going back to any development human rights in the world 10 years ago to say you could have your unlimited capacity, gigawatt of energy capacity in your country, we are surrounded by conversations where now the question, I can't imagine that any of them in many ways I want to use it to run a bunch of conversation. It is a may or may not challenge when you think about what are our priorities. Andrew, your organization, again, going back to core principles of human rights and dignity and over-dependence, is to say governments who have limited capacity. There are places that have we are surrounded by conversations where now the question is surrounded by conversations now use it to run a conversation. It is a may or may not challenge. It is a fundamental. Andrew, your organization, again, going back to core principles of human rights and over-dependence, is to say governments who have limited capacity. We are surrounded by conversations where now the question is surrounded by conversations now use it to run a conversation. It is a may or may not challenge. It is a fundamental. And your organization, again, going back to the principles of human rights, again, going back to the conversations, is to say governments who have limited capacity. We are surrounded by conversations where now the question is surrounded by conversations now use it to run a conversation. It is a may or may not challenge. It is a
is simple. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As President Macron said at this summit, the old world says you compete or you lose. The old world is simple. The new world says there is no such thing as trustworthy AI. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, this is not the world is simple. The major powers. There is no such thing as major powers. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, is simple. The major powers. There is no such thing as major powers. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, is simple. The major powers. There is no such thing as major powers. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, is simple. There is no such thing as major powers. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, is simple. There is no such thing as major powers. There is no such thing as trustworthy AI. As in today's geopolitical landscape, as in today's geopolitical landscape, is simple. AI systems are developed. AI systems are developed to just practice standard diverse, AI related to data sharing. Her focus areas includes open data, artificial intelligence, and data-driven government. And she has a PhD in law from the University of Oslo on how to realize responsible data-driven public administration. So give her a big hand, and Heather, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Niels. So I'm going to outline a framework for trustworthy artificial intelligence in the public sector that we use in Norway. Now, I just want to preface this. It's not a formal framework or an official framework that we have, but it's very much the elements that we use for trustworthy AI in the public sector. So we see a huge opportunity in Norway for the use of AI in the public sector, both to deliver better and more timely and indeed more context-aware services, while also creating the efficiencies we so urgently need. And these aren't just efficient, Norway is certainly not unique here in needing to create efficiencies with the public sector. But at the same time, we're hugely aware of the challenges that artificial intelligence brings. We're walking this tightrope here, and I'll just show you kind of on the slide here as well. We're kind of walking a tightrope here, trying to get a balance for how do we harness this really powerful technology while at the same time ensuring that it remains trustworthy. Because losing trust in the Norwegian public administration is quite frankly just simply not an option. Trust has been hard-earned over very many generations, and it must be renewed every single day. So we also don't claim to have all the answers. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you all that we have this all solved in Norway. I don't think anyone would believe me. But we're building on very strong foundations, and we're putting new building blocks in place systematically and deliberately to enable innovation without compromising trust, that balancing act that we're all trying to achieve. So one example here is the establishment of our government AI unit in the Digitalisation Agency of Norway, which I'm currently leading the establishment of. It's designed to accelerate innovative and responsible AI development and use. So I'm just going to outline the 6 core elements of our framework, and you'll see them here behind me as well. So first is legitimate and trusted institutions. Norway benefits from high institutional trust, and safeguarding these institutions is just simply non-negotiable. We cannot lose trust in these institutions. They must be safeguarded. Second is shared public values. In the public sector, AI must reflect our fundamental values: equality, fairness, accountability. We openly acknowledge risks like bias and power asymmetries, and trust requires confronting these risks. We don't ignore them. Third, then, is robust governance. Guardrails must be in place if AI is to strengthen rather than undermine trust. So we combine extensive national legislation governing public services, decades-old legislation, together with European regulation, including the forthcoming transposition of the Artificial Intelligence Act in Europe. And we do complementary soft law mechanisms as well, such as, of course, standards and guidelines. And as our minister, who will join the panel quite soon, will likely elaborate upon, we also, our safeguarding children online is also very high on the governance agenda in Norway. Fourth, then, is high-quality public data. As Niels mentioned there, it's very close to my heart. And AI is only as trustworthy as the data it relies upon. For decades now, Norway has collected high-quality public sector data, both to build and support our welfare state. This data is professionally managed, and it's highly prioritised to share this data, both openly and under controlled access. Public data is not merely a technical asset, but is also a societal one. Fifth, then, is a well-informed and highly digitalised population. Norwegians are digitally mature, exactly as the population here in India. And there are very high expectations for transparency, explainability, and fairness. Sixth, then, is targeted research. AI presents very complex and often unpredictable risks, as we are all aware of. Addressing them requires deep multidisciplinary expertise. Close engagement with research is therefore essential, and Norway is investing heavily in public sector artificial intelligence research. One great example of this is the Trust Research Centre, which has organised this session, and we are all members here, so the Norwegian Digitalisation Agency is a core partner here, along with many other public and private sector bodies, so it's very much research, public and private sector. So to conclude, our framework is a balancing act, and we tried to depict this on the diagram here behind me. Each element is dependent upon the other, so there's an interdependency here. If one fails, the whole structure fails. We do not claim to have solved every challenge. Like all countries, this is a work in progress, but Norway is entering this transformation consciously and deliberately. So thank you from me, and I'm handing over now to Hildegunn McLernan from Kongsberg Maritime.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Heather, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Hildegunn McLernan. I'm the Senior Vice President of Technology Office at Kongsberg Maritime. And I will show a little bit about AI in the industry. It's similar aspects as the public sector on many aspects. And I will give some examples of also how we need trustworthy AI going forward. So a little bit about Kongsberg Maritime. We are a leading global technology partner for the maritime industry, specializing in innovative and integratable systems that can enable a safer, cleaner, and more efficient operations. So our products, they range from digital and emerging technologies. We have the energy systems on board vessel. We have the controls and automation, including dynamic positioning, for example. And we also have one of the largest portfolio of propulsion and handling equipment. And all of this is serviced with 24/7 global customer support. We are today over 8,000 employees and operating out of 35 countries. And I think what's most importantly when it comes to AI and digitalization is that we have equipment on over 30,000 vessels. And this is 1/3 of the international maritime fleet. So you can imagine the impact and the amount of data and opportunities that are out there. Some of the drivers in the industry is shown on this slide. Waterborne trade is about 80 to 90% of the global transportation. So it's a really critical factor across the world. It's also increasing. It's the most sustainable mode of transport. And with an increasing population, there is an increase in also waterborne trade. At the same time, we have a decline in workers in the industry. We need to attract talents, so we need to have attractive technology. And we also need to have smarter technology so that we can automate and have less people on board the vessel required in the future. The other trend is decarbonization and digitalization. So the maritime industry is going towards net zero by 2050. And we're doing this jointly, using also digitalization as one of the key enablers. Using the insights that we have from data to integrate solutions is really helping us to also have smarter integratable solutions that can decarbonize better. And then with the increase of digitalization, it's also the increase of security threat and the focus on safety and cybersecurity in particular. There is an increase in regulations, and we see because we are a global industry, the regulations can be quite diverse, coming from different parts of the world, and it can be complex to operate in a safe and secure manner. But this is one of the key drivers also on new technology, and we need to stay ahead and make sure that we have safe and secure operations. So what do we think that the future looks like? So we believe that in the future, all vessels will be connected. And this is really shaping the next frontier of digital integration. This is changing the way that we're operating. So we will have to be continuously updating our solutions. The vessels are built today to last for at least 25 years, but the technology is evolving very fast. So setting up the correct infrastructure and also having the support from land is very key. And this can provide a lot of new solutions going forward. We will do remote support, so you don't need to send a service engineer out on the vessel to do upgrades as we are doing today, but we will have more continuous and preventive maintenance and over-the-air upgrades. We can also integrate a lot more from what's happening on the vessel, what's happening on the port, and what's happening in the broader logistic chain. So the value chain integration, optimizing the vessel performance and even the fleet operation will be possible in the future. And then we're seeing the shift. Already we have some remote and autonomous vessels operating. It's really exciting technology, and we believe this will really optimize how the whole industry goes forward. With the increase on waterborne trade, the lack of workers and the attractiveness, I think having autonomous vessel and having remote support is really changing. So this is how we see the industry is going, and I think AI is really a key enabler on many of these aspects. And here is one example. We have a lot of focus on hydrodynamic. How can we have competitive and the best equipment out there? And we do a lot of developments and research over the years on hydrodynamic. Every hull and propeller are unique. And then from the design, we can also then monitor and collect data in operation. So when we collect that data, real-time information on how the propeller is performing, we can also then apply AI and learn from the patterns. And we can optimize when it comes to underwater radiated noise, which will affect our biodiversity, for example. We can have more efficient operation. We can have faster acceleration on ferries, for example. And it can give many benefits, like also preventing and measuring wear and tear on the propeller, and we can avoid that we will have failures in operations. So this is just one example on what type of value will this type of data that we will gather create. So that's, we can apply AI, and we are doing it today. We're doing a lot of research, but what we see is very key is we need to have the human interaction, and we need to ensure that humans accept and trust the solutions that we have. So bridging the gap between human expectation and the AI output, it's really key to us. And that's why we are doing a lot of research into AI. How can we make sure that we have robust and sound and secure solutions, and that they operate in the expected way. So one of the centers that we have joined is the AI Research Center, the Norwegian Center for Trustworthy AI, that is led by Professor Martin Dahlen from University of Oslo, and I'll hand it now over to him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hildegunn. If you have trust in something, that thing should be trustworthy. And if you develop something that is trustworthy, I or anyone else should have trust in that thing. And trustworthiness and trust is kind of difficult. Some people will say, a mission impossible. I will come back to this title. What we have done at Trust together with our partners, we have 4 of us here, even more, and we also have Sintef here, is that we try to define the direction where we want to go. The first direction, we want to have accuracy. We want AI to be precise. At least we want to know the precision. We want those who is producing AI system to explain what's behind the hood. We want AI to be fair, inclusive, and protect our autonomy. We want AI to be safe, secure, and protect our privacy. And we want AI to be sustainable. We want to develop green AI for the green transition. And finally, also want this AI to be well governed on all levels. And Nils talked about this, both on international level, on national level, on organizational level, and even on individual level. However, these 6 is not enough. We can do this in the lab or very locally. We have to scale it. So trustworthiness is also what happens when we scale things. The title I have is about that AI is heavy industry. It's basically hunting for critical minerals. It's very thirsty because this data center is using a lot of water, and it's also using a lot of energy. Where are the direction? Where are the pathways for this? It has been mentioned by both Hildegunn, Heather, and Nils, different pathways here. What we see here is that we have to move from large to smaller models, maybe moving the intelligence closer to the edge. Within hardware side, we have neuromorphic development across the world. The most effective thinking instrument we have is between our ears. Neuromorphism is about copying what we are doing between our ears. And optical computing is about using photons instead of electrons. Data sharing is something we have to think about. Maybe we should also refine all the data we have around. Data reduction is something that many researchers are looking into because we are filling up data centers with a huge amounts of data. And of course, there are also research groups around the world, including Trust, looking at how can we organize data centers in the future. The other pathway is, of course, the governance pathway that has been mentioned. When we develop future environmental social governance frameworks, we have to think of the AI awareness. Niels also mentioned standardization, also mentioned by Heather. What are the key performance indicators for the future? Because we can solve one problem, but that might create another problem. So these indicators are important to develop. And how do we prioritize Earth health alongside human user needs? Human users, we are a part of the planet, but there are also other things on this planet. And of course, I'm in favor of looking into how can we tax these systems, how can we tax digital resources, and use these types of money to really reproduce what we want in the future. So far, I've been a little bit negative. However, there is also some positive things when it comes to AI, because AI also can be a catalyst for the green transition. I don't have time to talk about all of these things. This has been mentioned by Hildegunn, Nils, and Heather. But one of the issues we are going into, and one of the projects we are launching these days in Trust, is that we combine climate data, health data, to look at climate-sensitive diseases. And on Monday, 2.5 days from now, we are starting a seminar in Kigali in Rwanda on these questions. My big question, there are many big questions within the realm of AI. Can AI help decouple economic growth from overuse of Earth's resources? Thank you very much. And then, Mala, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Morten, and thank you to all our speakers. Norway may be a small country, but we have always had a global outlook. From the Viking voyages to the polar expeditions and to modern maritime innovation. Today, as you know, we are entering a new era of exploration, artificial intelligence. So let us once again turn to the central question of this session. What does it truly take to build trustworthy AI? To deepen our understanding on this topic, we are joined by an outstanding panel, as you can see. But first, as this is a Norwegian-led session, it is my great pleasure to welcome Norway's Minister of Digitalization and Public Governance, Karianne Tung.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everyone for being here. Also, dear co-panelists, thank you for joining us here today. And thank you to Trust and their partners for, and I would say particularly the Norwegian Digitalization Agency, for putting together today's program for raising this important issue related to the responsible and trustworthy use of artificial intelligence. As we all know, and I think we see it already, artificial intelligence will play a decisive role in shaping future innovation, future growth, and also future competitiveness. And importantly, and I think this is the best sentence of today, so listen very carefully, I think artificial intelligence can help create a better world by reducing inequality, improving health and safety, supporting green transition, and promoting creativity and education. However, to realize this potential, AI must be safe, it must be trustworthy, and it must be secure. It is a priority for the Norwegian government to establish sound and reliable frameworks for all development and use in this era. In Norway, the government is taking action. We are in the process of implementing the EU AI Act into Norwegian law, and we are also ensuring that Norwegian actors have access to high-performance computing and data storage capacity. And also, we are developing national foundation and language models that everyone can use free of charge. At the same time, we are establishing something we in Norwegian called KI Norge. It's directly translated to AI Norway, even that might not the official title yet. We are working on that one. But I really believe that this establishment of AI Norway will strengthen national guidance on responsible use of AI. And if there is one thing I hear from business leaders or if it's the public sector, they are uncertain. So establishing this good body of guidance will be really important to make sure that we adopt and implement and use AI in a proper way. We are also investing in knowledge. That's why we are here. That's why we're here at Trust. Norway has allocated more than 1 billion Norwegian kroners, that is about $100 million, to 6 research centers on artificial intelligence, and Trust is, of course, one of them. At the same time, and crucial for success, Norway must cooperate with like-minded countries. We are already participate actively and exert influence through the UN, the OECD, GPI, and the Hiroshima process, which was the first global framework on responsible artificial intelligence. Because we must learn from each other, simply but hard enough. We must continue to build and share knowledge about the implication of the technology. Together, we must develop technologies and governance models that build trust in public authorities, in public and private services, and that support democratic values and foster trust in society. Together, I believe we must contribute to, and not least ensure, the practical implementation of an international frameworks for responsible AI. So I'm really happy for this opportunity to get together and discuss from our different perspective. And also I am really happy and impressed by being here in India and Norway as an EFTA country as well. With the EFTA-India trade agreement, I can see great opportunities for the future for Norway and India also to work together on the green transition and the maritime industry with health tech, and also, of course, with the digital technology and artificial intelligence run across all of those sectors. So by that, thank you so much for the attention. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Minister. Now we're moving over to the panel discussion, as promised, to bring some more global perspectives to this session. And I will just do a quick introduction. I'll start from that side. We have Luana Roncarate from Brazil. You can see the details, of course, on the screen. We have from our host country, Amlan Mohanty and Sindhu Gangadharan. And from Japan, we have Mr. Yukio Teramura, and of course, our minister here. I have challenged you all for a quick lightning round. And since our minister, you're going to leave us a little bit earlier, I heard. We'll get a signal, I'm sure. From where you sit, what does trustworthy AI mean to you? So that's supposed to be short but sweet.
I can be really short. It means that you should trust the technology, and then trust society, trust businesses, trust politicians, trust authorities, trust your friends.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Mr. Taramura?
Okay, trustworthy AI is fundamental to the AI governance policy of the Japanese government. And Japan is committed to the balancing and the promotion of innovation with risk management. And Japan launched the AI Basic Plan last December. And it also stipulated that by the pursuing the trustworthy AI. And Japan aims to become the most AI-friendly country in the world.
Wonderful. And we will hear more about that AI plan later on. Yes, then we'll move on. Oh, you don't have a microphone? Oh, sorry. We have to share these.
Mala, I think I'll keep it short. For me, I reflect back on what I heard earlier on, and for me personally, it just can't, trust in AI just can't be about accuracy. That's one important piece, but it has to be also about reliability. I mean, you need to be able to rely on the outcomes, right? And it's also about transparency. Very important is fairness. And finally, I think it's also about accountability, having somebody who is like, okay, that's the decision the algorithm took, but still I stand by that decision, right? So these are 5 important aspects for me.
Very important. And then, yes, we have to share these microphones.
No problem at all. 2 things for me. To trust something, I need to understand how it works. And 2 is I want agency, so I want choice in the matter. In case I don't trust something, I want to have an option. So that's the 2 things.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. In my point of view, I think to be trustworthy, it needs to be inclusive, sustainable, and also respects human rights and national jurisdictions.
Sounds very good. To reflect a bit on the values concerning us all, yesterday Prime Minister Modi spoke about the importance of protecting children and young people from the risks of AI. And you've also been, Minister, very clear that safeguarding children online is a priority for you and for Norway. Could you shed some light on what are you doing to protect Norwegian children and youth?
Of course, I really believe that children and young people have the right to be as protected in the digital world as in the physical world. And as by now, they are not. When we leave our children at schools or they play with friends, there's always adults there looking after them, like looking over. In the digital world, no one is there to take care of them. The big tech companies today, they have a lot of power. They gather a lot of data. We can see examples which is not very nice on what children are being exposed of. It leads to pressure, bullying, even examples of suicide, as we have seen. So there is a real need to protect children and young people online. That's why the Norwegian government now are proposing an age limit on social media on 15 years old. We are working together with partners in the European Union also. And I'm really happy that I heard both President Macron and Prime Minister Modi yesterday. That was great news. I feel that more and more countries are coming aboard because we are starting to see the real consequences. But also we have to regulate the tech companies as well, or the social medias, when it comes to dark patterns, dependencies, algorithms, and so forth. We have launched, or we are right now having a white paper at the Parliament in Norway as well. And at the end, I have to say, it's right to find the right balance, because we want to bring up children in this world that have digital competence as well. They have to learn to use the technology and to understand the technology and to do critical thinking as well. So to find the right balance is about giving the teachers and the adults the right competence to teach the children the right things as well. So we have to be able to have 2 thoughts in our heads at the same time.
Absolutely. And having a safe society, it's also about social stability. Which brings me over to you, Mr. Takamura. Japan is known for balancing innovation and social stability. So how is this this philosophy, so to speak, reflected in the new national AI strategy?
Okay, the utilization of AI is directly linked to the industrial competitiveness and national security. And it's ideal to actively utilize AI to address social challenges, accumulate experience as data, and share it across organizations, thereby accelerating innovation and creating a virtuous cycle that further promotes its utilization. Japan is facing the declining the birth rate and an aging population, leading to the gradually shrinking society, but making utilization of AI leading the increasingly important. Nevertheless, unfortunately, AI has not yet been actively utilized in the daily life. Because it is recognized that the utilization of AI involves the various risks. For example, the technical risks such as misjudgment, hallucinations, and inappropriate output, and social risks such as discrimination and bias and criminal use, infringement of the privacy and the intellectual properties. And another one is the national security risk, including cyber attacks. Yeah, so these risks cause public anxiety. Yeah, so in the AI basic plan, therefore the pursuit, the trustworthy AI is not only essential for the dispelling public concern on risks, but also a crucial factor in actively utilizing AI and promoting innovation. Yeah, so in the AI basic plan, Japan pursue further promoting innovation while mitigating risks. And we will deepen the balance to ensure a human-centered AI society where the individual dignity is respected so that people, AI can work together continuously and pursue trustworthy AI to realize the most AI-friendly country in the world.
Thank you. Building on that, you mentioned AI-friendly. I will move on to you, Ms. Gangadharan. You are often described as a technology humanist. I just have to ask you about that. What does that mean? Well, I think it's very simple, Mala, because technology cannot be there for technology's sake, right? I mean, we have technology to make the lives of people better and communities better. And probably it reflects back also on the whole theme of this AI Impact Summit that we are having here, right? It's really about how do we take it forward? How do we bring people forward? I love what the minister was saying. I mean, it's finally about how do we make it real for people to consume, right? So for me, it has always been not about, hey, what's the latest and greatest technology, but really how do we use that technology to shape and change. I can just give you, I know we are all talking about AI at this point, but if I just also reflect a few years back, right? I mean, we had a massive pandemic, right? And if I just take that example, the second wave of the pandemic was quite tough for India. At least many of you here in this audience would still remember that. But at the same time, I still remember how all of us kind of leveraged technology. And back then, the biggest need of the hour in India was to track the oxygen supply chain along the length and breadth of the country. And if I put on my SAP hat, I work for SAP, and back then it was really about how do we identify the top oxygen manufacturers in the country and use technology to be able to help the government of India have this digital dashboard that helped them to very quickly track the oxygen supply chain, right? And it was almost leveraging technology over the weekend, right? Because 80% of the oxygen manufacturers in the country run on SAP, but that's besides the fact. But it's about usage of technology for people and to save lives, right? So that possibly goes back to the tech humanist, what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, excuse me, we'll do the questions later. Please sit down. Please, thank you. Was it a pandemic or a bio-warfare? No, please, sir. Please, sir. Thank you. Well, actually, following India through the pandemic was quite impressive from Norway. I remember my uncle asking me if I had the vaccine, and he had it like a year ago, and we didn't have the vaccine. So, okay, we're going to move on to Amlan. When we had our preparatory chat, There were so many things you could talk about, but I'm going to stick to the fact that you're a tech lawyer and advisor to the Indian government on the AI guidelines. I was wondering, how would you describe the values that the policy is built upon?
Yeah, look, values, I'm going to interpret values slightly holistically here. So I'm going to talk about values in the sense of what's the spirit driving this, the guidelines, the governance framework, its approach to trust. And I'll just start with optimism. I think India, and you could hear this in Prime Minister Modi's speech yesterday, it's driven by a sense of optimism. And so even when we're talking about governance, it's an expansive view of governance. It's not about containment, it's not about regulation or risk mitigation only. It's also about driving adoption and the importance of capacity building, all of the things that Minister said early on, right? So I think that's the largest spirit in which we're talking about it. When it comes to values specifically, I think it's embodied in what the theme for this summit is, which is inclusivity, equality, access. So that's actually driving a lot of what the spirit of or the values of the governance guidelines are. So you'll see these referenced in the OECD, you'll see this referenced in the GPA conversations and what the UN is doing. And I think that's what India has also internalized in its governance frameworks. So, that's about spirit, the optimistic spirit clearly on display here at the summit, thematically value-based, I think, in terms of what the core values are in the summit. But I'll say in terms of actually implementing it, I think the approach that we're taking in India is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. These values are embedded in our constitution. These principles of fairness and equality are constitutional rights that Indian citizens have. And there's no reason to believe this doesn't apply to AI, right? So it's really about ensuring that these same values trickle down across from the constitution to how laws are enforced, through how guidelines are implemented by all stakeholders, including companies, including how public officials enforce these laws. So I think that's the light touch kind of regulatory, agile approach that we're bringing to our governance framework in India.
Thank you, Amlan. You mentioned the optimism, and I'm just sensing that the same might be the case in Brazil. Luana, Brazil and India are both part of the BRICS grouping, large democracies with fast-growing economies and increasingly influential, both countries in shaping the global technology debate. And you have also, in Brazil, launched the National Artificial Intelligence Plan. What values are upheld by that plan?
Thank you for your question and for having me. Well, I think it's important to say that for Brazil, and specifically the ministry which I represent here, the Ministry of Management and Innovation in Public Services, understand that AI is not a matter of technology alone. There is a lot about an understanding of and the need for behavior that is responsible, ethical, transparent, that promote inclusion as well. So the plan that we recently launched brings all these values, brings the value of sovereignty as well to work with this important topic. And you know that Brazil has, for the last 2 decades at least, worked a lot with concepts related to digital public infrastructure. And it has been very important for us to promote better services to our population. And we understand that AI can help us to go to a next step and provide more personalized and more proactive public services to our population. But we also understand that we need to mitigate the risks, the challenges, and to do that in a very responsible and ethical manner. And we have been working a lot to promote that, especially related to data governance, data infrastructure, and to safeguard all the human rights and democratic values in this great endeavor that we are dedicated to.
Thank you, Luana. I just got a signal that we have 5 minutes left. I don't know where time went. So I'll back to the minister here. Norway often speaks about digital sovereignty or digital agency. Minister, what does that mean in practice for us? I mean, we're sitting here next to quite big countries. What does it mean to a small country?
It means everything. Talking about digital sovereignty, which is really the big topic of all discussions, I would say, today. First of all, Norway is a small country, 5.5 million citizens. We can't be self-sufficient in the digital world. We need cooperation. We need to work together with like-minded countries. Digital sovereignty is not about one thing. Digital sovereignty is about a lot of things. It's many layers. It's a whole value chain. It is about everything from regulation, guidelines, framework, but also about critical minerals, semiconductors, data centers, fibers, connectivity, software, hardware. The list is very long. That's why you understand Norway can't be self-sufficient, because it is about a lot of things. But it's important for us to have the ability to act, to have alternatives, I think to have control. We can have control through regulation, ownership, collaborations, working together, and that's the strategy that Norway has chosen, because a lot of different things can happen. We have climate change, fibers, networks can go down. We need to work on the robustness of that one. Cyber attacks already mentioned. We have political risk, which is also now important for us. So having the ability to act and work together with like-minded countries is the important thing for Norway to do, and that's why also I'm happy to be here and feel the spirit from India as well. And I'm really impressed by the work that has been done here when it comes to inclusiveness and scaling. I think we have a lot of things to learn in Norway from that one.
Thank you. I would very hard. Would you like to add something? All right. We're moving towards the end here, but just a quick question for you. Sindhu, India being a complex nation with quite the opposite kind of like large population in terms of size and demographics. For business, AI represents a competitive advantage. At the same time, one has to sort out what's the hype, what's the what will bring actually value to the business or the country as a whole. So I would just like a short remark from you. What do you think India is doing in terms of like making the right choices at this very moment?
Well, I think most of you have probably experienced it firsthand over the last days at the summit in terms of the right choices India is making, right? If you talked about digital public infrastructures earlier on, I mean, think about bringing together a nation of 1.48 billion, right? So we've done that, right? And leveraging the power of technology. And that is a little bit of the foundational work also when we talk about AI. How are we bringing in AI to solve the needs of the country, right? Bringing it into education, into healthcare, into agriculture, right? All of these very pertinent needs of the hour is what we are focusing on, and making it inclusive, right? For the people, for the various states, and according to across the length and breadth. So that's a little bit, and at the same time, what you're also seeing from a tech perspective, Mala, for all the business community here in the room, we have a phenomenal tech ecosystem at play, a consumption ecosystem at play. So the market is phenomenally growing. We're talking about a 7.5% GDP growth, and poised to become the third largest economy in the world very soon. So in that sense, the time is right. So I can only say we are all about partnerships. It's all about inclusion, and we want to leverage tech for driving forward some of those large topics that I touched upon.
Thank you, Sindhu. And it's obvious that regulation alone will not build trustworthy AI, nor by innovation alone. I think it will be built. From this summit, that's what I gather, that it will be built in the intersection of values, maybe power, and also perspectives that you've shared today. This summit has really opened its doors to the world, and perhaps that is the real takeaway, that no nation can build trustworthy AI all by themselves. We have to cooperate. So thank you to our wonderful panel, and thank you to our wonderful audience. Thank you. And please, if you want to learn more about trust, there is a QR code on the screen appearing soon. Please just find out more. Thank you.